everyone. Hope you're having a good day so far. I am Disha Sangvi. I lead content and communications at Onsurity. And in fact, this is the first time I'm hosting the Wellness Wednesday session. So really looking forward to what the session is going to have in store for all of us. Okay, we also have our guest speaker. So, before we move in and before I move on and introduce our speaker today, I would like to quickly give an introduction of what our topic today is. So, when we talk about digital detox, the first thought that comes to our mind is keeping away from tech, keeping away from our phones, tabs, laptops, etc. Right? But nobody really looks at how they can detox themselves using some of the apps or some of the digital resources that we currently have. So this session is all about that. Basically in today's fast-paced world, it is very essential to maintain our overall well-being. So while a healthy lifestyle, exercises, socializing, everything plays a very crucial role, there are a bunch of digital solutions that have emerged as a promising way to promote wellness. And this session, that's exactly what we'll be talking about. What are some of these tools, how reliable they are, how credible they are, and how we can go about using them. So the main goal of this webinar is to sort of throw light on the role of digital apps in our day-to-day lives and how our well-being can be enhanced through these apps. Yeah. So I'll quickly introduce our speaker and then I'll hand over and I'll have him take the session forward. So our speaker for today is Dr. Devashish Palkar. He's a qualified psychiatrist and psychotherapist who did his MD in psychiatry from Government Medical College, Surat. He's presently an assistant professor and consultant psychiatrist in Vadodara. Dr. Palkar has a profound passion for promoting mental health and wellness, and he's an author, and he's authored several research papers that have been published in the International Journal of Scientific Research. Additionally, he actively contributes to increasing awareness about mental health and wellness through his blogs and by creating educational video content on YouTube. It's a pleasure having you with us, Dr. Palkar. Over to you now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me for the session. And if people have joined in, and if you permit, we can start with the session.
Yeah, I think we have quite a few people who've joined in, so I don't think we should, wait any further. Just one thing I would like. I'm so sorry. Just one thing I would like to let all our attendees know, if you have any questions while Dr. Palkar takes us through his thoughts and his presentation, you can put them in the chat box. And once he's completed speaking, we will take up those questions. Okay, over to you, Dr. Palkar.
Sure. Right. Is my voice audible to everyone? I hope so, right? Disha?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I'll just share my screen. Just let me know if it's visible once it's there.
Yes, your screen is visible.
All right. So good afternoon to one and all who have been present here waiting for this seminar to get underway. I am Dr. Devashish Palkar, and today I shall be speaking about the digital solutions to wellness, right? So if we had to start off straight away, I just want to ask everyone who is present here to define what wellness means to them. Let's keep this session slightly more interactive. So if people in the audiences want to unmute and just say what wellness means to them, I think that would be a good start. So anybody from the audience would want to start off with how they look at wellness and what is their definition of wellness. You could type that down in the chats as well, or you could just unmute yourself and say. All right. So see, basically what happens is, as we begin the session, first and foremost, I want that everyone is there with their headphones switched on, with the cameras and videos also on, so that we can see each other, we can have a conversation, right? So this is the modern times that we're living in, wherein we can easily have a conversation from across the country, from across the world, right? So let's utilize this to our advantage today. So I would request, if it's possible, keep your videos on so that we can have a conversation going, right? So as I was saying, we'll start off with the question, what does wellness mean to you? If we had to look at the textbook definition of wellness, then wellness is basically the act of practicing healthy habits on a daily basis to attain better physical and mental health outcomes, so that instead of just surviving, you're actually thriving. So this is what the textbook definition of wellness is. And it is important to understand that wellness and health, though they may sound synonymous and though we use it interchangeably, they are not the same thing. Health is basically the absence of diseases and staying healthy, but wellness is something which is beyond health. So let's look at what do you mean by wellness and health, and look at the several dimensions of wellness that we all know. So if you had to look at the dimensions of wellness, then there are basically 8 dimensions wherein the wellness can be measured, or wherein you would want to remain well. One is the emotional dimension, one is the occupational dimension, one is intellectual, one is environmental, one is financial, and another is social, physical, spiritual. So these are all the dimensions of wellness that we need to be aware of, right? And each area is important for our overall functioning in the day-to-day life, right? Why do we talk about wellness? We talk about wellness because all these areas of our life help us to function better, help us to perform our day-to-day activities in a better way and remain happy at the end of the day. So if any of these domains is affected in some or the other way, let's say, for example, you're not happy with your workspace, or let's say you're emotionally disturbed, you're suffering with depression or anxiety, or if your physical health is not proper, or there are some issues going on in your social health, then of course, your health suffers, but at the same time, sometimes you may not suffer from diseases in general, but still your quality of life suffers. That is what we come to what is defined as wellness. So if we look at the differences between wellness and health, so if we had to look at it in a slightly detailed way, health is something that is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Whereas wellness is actually an active process through which people become aware of and make choices towards a more successful existence. So it's actually a practical way of achieving health. And there are a few steps which take us further, which emphasize the mental, physical, social, as well as occupational, intellectual, and emotional well-being. Whereas when we look at health, it is merely a state of being. And main aspects are just focusing on the mental, physical, and social well-being. In health, we don't talk about the physical, the social, the financial, occupational, all other areas of life are not included in the definition of health. But we all know how important they are for our everyday life, right? So let's say, for example, your physical health, your mental health, and your social health are proper, but your occupational, your finances are not managed in a proper way. Then again, your wellness is going to go down. Over a period of time, when your wellness goes down, you become more vulnerable to suffering from health disorders as well. When we talk about health, it is mainly a Western medicine related concept, right? And I'm a practitioner of Western medicine, but still, why we are talking about wellness today is we need to go beyond just the disorder model and focus on improving the overall quality of our life. So wellness is more related to the complementary and the alternative medicine, whereas when we talk about the mental health side of the health, when the Western medicine, we consider remaining free from stress and remaining free from mental diseases. Whereas in wellness, we focus mainly on mindfulness, mind training, in addition to general mental health. Ultimate goal of health is that a person remains free from diseases, whereas wellness is an activity which is a dynamic process which results in health on a long-term basis. So this is what is the classical difference between health versus the wellness. Now, I want to ask the audiences, and here I would want them to be very interactive. Now, what is your daily wellness ritual, right? So, we all have different rituals that we do, some consciously, some unconsciously, some habits that we have learned from our childhood, some habits that we have developed. So, all these things do constitute as a part of our wellness strategy, wellness rituals, right? So, what are your strategies? What are the strategies that you incorporate in your day to day life, which helps you maintain your wellness quotient? So, audiences, please be active. Anybody who wants to unmute themselves and just talk?
Yeah, so Priyanka has said that she likes to walk,
Okay,
and that's sort of her wellness therapy.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. What else,
Yeah.
Priyanka, apart from
Anybody else?
Priyanka?
Please do. Yeah. Oh, Ishanvi has said that she meditates.
That's
To
wonderful.
sort of,
Ishani, Ishani, could you mention what kind of meditation you do, and if you practice it, a guided one, or you do it on your own? What is it like? If you would want to share, if it's okay for you.
She's saying extracurricular activities.
All right. Okay.
We also have someone who said that they go to the S. Pandey has said that they go to the nearby park and read a book to
Wonderful.
unwind.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful activity to have.
Yeah. Then Amol has said that he prefers traveling and trekking. Ishanvi has also said that she takes the guided meditation route.
That's wonderful. So I think people have some or the other idea about their rituals which help to enhance the wellness, right? Today we'll be talking about some of the digital apps and the devices which are easily available to us, which can enhance our wellness and keep us on track, right? So the basic fundamental about this talk is mainly focusing on the digital side, so that we start to utilize the services of the internet, the services of artificial intelligence and the technology that is available to us in a positive way, right? As Disha rightly mentioned at the start, a lot of times we criticize the technology, a lot of times we criticize the artificial intelligence, but there are also healthy ways in which we can utilize them. And that is what the focus is going to be, right? So moving forward, so I just want to ask you a question that, as you mentioned, all these habits, people might have started this recently or they might have been practicing for a long time. But I specifically want to ask, how has your wellness rituals changed over the course of, say, let's say last 5 years? And why we're talking about 5 years is this is the time when we have access to high-speed internet. This is the time where we have just come out of pandemic. So, a lot of changes have taken place in the global scenario, right? So has the rituals changed in the last 5 years? That's the question that I want to ask. And if audience can answer.
Let me start, Dr. Palkar. I think
Sure.
one thing that I've started doing after the pandemic, I mean, I'm not regular at it, but I try and do is sort of integrate half an hour of, simple yoga before I sort of get ready for work and get to work. So I think that sort of helps me get through the whole day, regardless of how much stress or how much the timeline pressure is on my mind. But yeah, that is something that really helps me.
I think that is
We also
wonderful.
have some responses.
Yeah.
Neeraj Rai says, I have started to take meditation more seriously.
That's wonderful. I think, people have in general started to take their mental health more seriously, especially post pandemic. And that's important, Neeraj, right? I think you're on the right track. That's great. Anybody has any other ideas? Anything that has changed in the recent past for you? All right.
You can okay.
Yeah, please, Disha, you wanted to add something?
No, I was just asking everyone to, put on the chat box if there's anything new that they've started doing. Priyanka says that she started chanting.
Wow, that's nice.
And S. Pandey has said that our lives are changing again, and so must our rituals. So yes, it has really changed over the years, and I have started to take them more seriously.
Right, right. So I think, I wanted to ask him only. I think he mentioned about trekking, right? So how has that changed? Has the trekking activities reduced because of the pandemic? And if he could not trek, then what are the activities that he started doing?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess he would take a couple minutes to let us know how he's navigating that.
Yeah, right. Right. So because in the last 5 years, overall, whatever the lifestyle that we were living, it has certainly changed. And also, the beautiful thing that has happened is with the advent of high-speed internet and with the possibility of services like Zoom or Google Meet, we are now much more connected with each other. We can have such meetings, we can have such discussions, right? This is also something that has happened quite new and quite recently. And I think all of us are benefiting out of it. Obviously, all things need to be done in moderation, but I think it's a wonderful way, to begin having discussions at least on this space. So, so for which wellness types do you mostly use digital tools, right? Let's just discuss that because, before I go on to suggest some apps and digital tools, I want to know from the participants who might be currently using some of the digital tools. It may be a digital app that they're using, it may be a subscription that they have taken, or it might be a wearable device that they might be using. So anybody here is using that, and how has the experience been so far? I would want to know from audiences. Okay. I think Priyanka uses music apps. That's wonderful.
Yeah, music apps. I also know people, who've installed app on their phones just to remind them to drink water. And I think that's
Yeah, that's true.
that's quite funny.
That's quite true. Right. So people have started using smartwatches. Amazfit smartwatch plus health app in iPhone. That's really wonderful. Yeah.
Google
Fitness
Fit.
trackers.
Yeah.
Okay. That's wonderful. I also would want to know your experiences. Ankur and others, have shared about some fitness trackers they've been using, right? How has that impacted your overall wellness rituals, right? Has it made you better stick to the routines, stick to the habits? How has it been? Or has it been very stressful? Because, some people might experience the other ways also, right? Having to constantly monitor and track everything might be stressful to some. It might be enjoyable and a motivating thing for others. So I would want to know how is it been for you, right?
A
I think
smartwatch for steps and not bring Not to be idle for long periods.
I think that's
Ishan.
wonderful, Ishanvi. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So many people I know, who have this thing in mind that they at least want to complete 6,000 or 8,000 steps at the end of the day. And I think that has resulted in people not sitting for long hours because, the recent research has been indicating that sitting for long hours is equivalent to smoking in terms of the health effects that it has, right? So I think it's wonderful to keep account of the steps, to have some goals that are set for yourself.
And I think a lot of smartwatches today also send out alerts if you're sitting for too
Exactly.
long, like,
Yeah.
please stand up,
Yeah,
time to
yeah.
stand.
Right. Even they measure the stress levels. Ask yourself to breathe slowly based on your heart rate, based on your oxygenation levels. So all these wonderful things have started to happen. Right. So it's good, audiences are answering questions. Right. So let's move forward and let's discuss about that. Right. So when we talk about physical wellness and mental wellness, there are certain things why we want applications for. We want applications so that they give us some suggestions or idea about our nutrition and diet. So there are these categories of apps which are available in the nutrition and diet based domains. There are certain apps which are available for sports and workout. There are certain apps and trackers which are available to track our activities. Let's say you're cycling or let's say you're running, all those things. Then there are also apps wherein you can directly have one-on-one interaction, obviously subscription based or sometimes free sessions with a fitness coach. And this was something that was mighty useful during the pandemic times when people realized that gyms could also be closed, and then they started to have workouts at their home with the help of fitness coaches who were also sitting from their homes. So the social distancing was also maintained, and your training and activities was also not affected. Right? We also need it for our medicines. We also need it for our teleconsultations. So if your physical health is not well and you are living in an area where access to a specialist is difficult, or in times of pandemic where you couldn't go to a doctor, you could have a teleconsultation with your doctor, right? So all these things, which were the requirements of the modern day age and time, have resulted in the development of these apps, right? Because people are now working from home. Sometimes, people may not want to go out of their home and travel long hours to meet a doctor, to meet a fitness coach. They can easily strike an appointment, strike a conversation with that person, saving a lot of the travel time, saving a lot of the cost. I think overall, if you look at it, it is also helpful for the environment in general, right? Because the carbon footprint also goes down. So there was this recent study which was going on, how post-pandemic and people now more, overall the carbon footprint could also go down if the transportation reduces, especially because of work from home. So these are all the apps that are currently in the market that are available. Some of the most famous ones that I've mentioned here. We will look at some of the apps at the later part of our discussion, which I would want to recommend from my personal experience and the experience that I've had with my patients and also the doctors that I work with. Right? So this is about physical wellness. Why do we need apps for mental wellness? So again, we can have teleconsultation with therapists directly. We can also have recorded meditation and mindfulness apps, as people have been mentioning. They use apps for meditation purposes, guided meditations, which are wonderfully available on, let's say, apps like Calm or Headspace. There are also free-to-use versions and also subscriptions that are available. Then also the apps can be useful in a person who is, say, recovering from addiction. A person who is recovering from addiction requires a high level of motivation on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes, which might be difficult if he is visiting a therapist in person, right? So, for example, if the person is visiting me in person, the appointments might be once a week. But during that entire week, what helps him to sustain probably could be a recovery app which he might be using, which might be sending him daily reminders, daily motivation, so that he remains on track in his recovery journey, right? So then there are specific disorder treatment apps. There are specific apps for patients suffering with OCD, for example, or suffering with depression or anxiety, for example. These apps then give out prompts which can be easily converted into actionable steps, and person may feel better instantly. There are also mental self-improvement apps that are available in the market. So this is about the mental wellness part, right? And if you talk about it, the Indian healthcare apps is currently valued at almost 43 billion in 2020 and is currently growing at the rate of 39%, right? So you can just imagine the tremendous growth that is happening when you talk about the digital healthcare applications domain, right? There are countless number of apps that are being released in the markets, and while this has given us, number of choices, sometimes also the problem of plenty comes in. We need to be aware, we need to understand that there might be certain apps which may not be reliable and accurate. This is something that is also important to know, right? So what are the role of digital apps in wellness? So there was this organization App Annie's which have done State of Mobile 2021 report estimated that in 2020 over 71,000 health and fitness apps were launched globally. Just imagine 71,000 apps were launched globally, 24,000 on the Apple Store and 47,000 in the Google Play Store. A huge number of apps are getting developed, designed, and launched in the market every day. Now, also the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted this because after the COVID-19 pandemic, people have started shifting to digital space. Telemedicine practice guidelines have also been enforced by the government. Government apps like Arogya Setu are also available, which look at our holistic health. Also, because of the high-speed internet facility and also the increase in digital literacy, people are now much more comfortable in seeking out a teleconsultation. I remember a time before the pandemic, when I would ask people that let's have an online consultation, let's have a telemedicine consultation. People were not quite sure, talking in front of a video screen, talking to a doctor or talking to a therapist. But now, post the pandemic, things have pretty much changed. People prefer rather having an online consultation rather than coming in person. So these are the things that are changing. And as people and citizens living in this modern day and age, we need to embrace the technology, right? So what are the
Absolutely.
benefits? Right?
If I could just add to what you just
Yeah,
said,
Rishabh.
Dr. Palkar, about teleconsultations, people becoming more comfortable about it. At Onsurity, even we've seen this because we have a end-to-end app that includes your insurance, your telemedicine, discounts on lab tests and medicines. And increasingly, we're seeing that more and more people are now sort of have it's become a normal thing now to people for people to consult doctors over calls and video calls. So I think going forward, teleconsultation is going to change lives in a big way.
Right, you're very right, right? And especially after the pandemic, so many apps have come in who are also working in the domain of medicine specifically, right? Let's say, for example, there are consultation services available for mental health, consultation services for your cardiac health, for your thyroid care. All these specific, apps have come up, which you might not have even envisaged before the pandemic started. So I think that's a huge advantage that has happened, and people are now utilizing those services as well. So what are the benefits of the digital solutions? So what could enhance the treatment, what could enhance the therapy, what could enhance the health is that now with the advent of these apps, there could be automated reminders for the medication adherence. So let's say, for example, a person who is suffering with diabetes or hypertension, once he gets a prescription from his physician and then he comes back a month later, the doctor has no idea whether the patient was taking the medications appropriately during that time, whether the patient was practicing all the fitness that the doctor had advised, that let's say a physiotherapist had advised. But now the adherence can be actually monitored. If a doctor tells that patient, okay, this is a particular app that you can, keep a track of and continue to monitor your journey over this, then obviously, the doctor also gets to know what the person is doing. And during that time, if the adherence to the medication, adherence to the therapy was ensured or not. Also, what it does is the apps will help to improve the motivation. So let's take an example of an app called Strava, right? So Strava is an app wherein you can track your fitness activities. So you can even form groups, you can even form clubs, you can, just have friends who are also into the field of fitness. By just looking at, how they are following their fitness journeys, that itself is a motivating thing for all of us, right? And these are real people, right? So when you look at them and when you see how they are managing their time, how they are constantly improving themselves, it actually sends you a motivation to do the same thing also, right? Also, the digital solutions, especially the teleconsultation, have reduced travel costs, and we now have the power to track and monitor health parameters quite regularly. So this is an added advantage that we all have, right? Let's say, for example, before the pandemic, as I was saying, if you go to a physician and take a prescription of a medicine for diabetes or hypertension for 1 month, during that 1 month period, the doctor has no idea how your, let's say, heart rate was fluctuating, or your blood pressure was fluctuating, or your saturation of oxygen was fluctuating. But now, with certain smartwatches available, certain applications available, the doctor has a ready access to those solutions, right? So this is something that is going to change the entire healthcare industry, the entire well-being industry in a huge, huge way in the future. But also, we need to be mindful that while there are so many apps available on the market, the reliability of some of the apps and devices is still a questionable thing. Why is that so? Because there are no regulatory authorities or regulatory bodies which are actually doing, end-to-end basis surveillance and monitoring whether the accuracy has been ensured. So, this is a basic example I would want to give. It's from my personal experience. So, I was using some time ago. There was this ColorFit Pro 3 watch that I was using. And at the same time, I was using Strava app, and I kept both of them on for my distance of running. And it was actually found out that, so my ColorFit Pro 3 watch measured the distance to be 4.1 kilometer, whereas it was measured on Strava app to be 3 kilometers. And when I measured it, actual distance from the GPS, it was somewhere closer to the Strava recording as compared to the ColorFit Pro 3 recording, right? So this is something that is a reality. So rather than relying on one app alone, you could try out a couple of them and see actually what is it. And based on the reviews also, then you can understand which apps to rely more on. So an app like Strava, it has got reliable, athletes also following it, people who are documenting their activity on a day-to-day basis. So it has more data available. It is very well connected to the GPS. So all these parameters also need to be taken into consideration before you begin to follow any app. And remember, all these apps are actually an add-on thing, right? As I said, it cannot replace a doctor, it cannot replace a therapist, it cannot replace a physiotherapist or your instructor in person. These are some things which you can practice on a day-to-day basis, but it's important that you just don't end up relying on them for a health parameters. Because I would like to bring to notice one of the examples that we had recently read in newspapers. There was an app which was released in the markets in USA, which says that they detect early stages of skin cancer. And once that app was launched, people started to follow it. It was seen that it was predicting things quite wrongly. And even the lesions which were supposed to be cancerous, the app was not able to identify it in early stages as a doctor would. So it's important to understand that these cannot be used for the set of diagnosis or something which is very serious, right? When you come to talking about running or tracking other activities, I would recommend that you try out a couple of products or have the reviews from people who have already been using them before buying and purchasing it. Because sometimes we end up realizing and regretting, okay, we wasted so much of money or subscription on some app or a product and it didn't turn out to be the way we wanted to. Which is why have good reviews for it and then only go on to purchase it. Also, there are certain security issues that have also been raised because of the lack of data privacy. And as I said, about the unsatisfactory clinical performance, right? To give you another example, in the pandemic times only, a lot of people had started using this pulse oximeters, which would measure your saturation of oxygen, right? And therefore, there were a lot of Chinese products, so to say, available in the market, which were predicting the SpO2 very wrongly. So it's important that whatever products that you are using, have a complete registration for it. Most of the products do undergo screening, do undergo some certifications that are necessary. Read all of them carefully before investing into any product or any subscription, right? And if you're going to subscribe to something, let's say, for example, you're going to subscribe for a fitness trainer, then see whether that person is actually qualified to do so. Because, in this digital day and age, everybody considers themselves to be experts, right? So it's also important that the expert that you're choosing, does he have the necessary qualifications? Talking from the field of mental health, I know so many influencers talk about mental health issues, and while that is wonderful, it helps to create an awareness. They cannot replace the therapists and the psychiatrists, who are qualified and trained to do so. So if you are using their products or their services, just make sure that you have gone through what their qualifications are, what their experience has been, rather than just relying on their digital online presence. Because they might be having thousands and millions of subscribers, but that does not mean that they are reliable all the time. So that is something that we need to keep in mind. So here are some of the applications that I have gone through, which have been researched and have proven to be more or less quite reliable, which you can use. And why I have chosen these particular apps is these track different things. So for example, there is this application, Indian application called as Karmados. It is basically an application developed to make sure that your medication adherence remains proper. So what this app basically does, once you have visited a doctor and once you have been given a certain set of prescription, the medications that you have to take, you just enter these medications, the timing of the medication that your doctor has asked you to, and then this app constantly keeps sending you reminders. Okay, now this is 8 a.m. and you need to take this particular tablet. What is different about this app is that, let's say, for example, if you maintain the consistency for 6 or 7 days, then this app does something beautiful for you. In a way, let's say, for example, if you are a person who loves to plant trees, so if you maintain the consistency of sticking to your medication for, let's say, 30 days, they will plant a tree on your behalf. So this is something, which is quite motivating to people, and I've seen a lot of people enjoying the benefits of it. A lot of people suffering with hypertension who have now started taking the medications regularly. They want to go on that 30 days streak so that one tree is planted in their name. So these are something beautiful that can happen. You can choose a whole lot of other activities also available, and this is a free to use app that is available for all the people in India. And I would say, just go out on Google Store, search for it, and if you find it useful, you could add to your mobile phone, right? Then there is this app called as Healthify Me. I'm sure because of the marketing, everybody knows. Now, Healthify Me is quite unique in a way that it has a whole lot of calories counting facilities available for the Indian dishes specifically, right? While there are apps which count calories for the various foodstuffs, Healthify Me has a catalog of, let's say what calories are there in your plate of chole chana or chole kulcha or pav bhaji. All that can be tracked very easily. You just have to upload a photograph, see for yourself how many calories are there, and there are also subscription-based facilities also available wherein you could directly, have a one-on-one discussion with the fitness coaches depending upon your weight tracking, weight loss, or anything that you have in person, right? Then there is this app called as Strava, which helps us to track all sorts of physical fitness activities, be it swimming, running, jogging, cycling, etc. Then there is this application called as Calm, which has free to use versions of guided meditations. Also, Headspace also is in the same domain of guided meditation relaxation protocols. There are also subscription tools available on both of these apps. Then there is this app called as Level, which is basically a digital journal. So where you could journal about gratitude, you could journal about your sleep habits, you could be given prompts about motivation. So these are certain apps that I would recommend from my side. You can try it out using. Again, these are personal recommendations because I have had the personal experience and I've talked to people who have used them. So these are something that you could try and incorporate, which takes care of various domains. We talked about the wellness part, right? So anybody in the audiences, have you been using any of these apps or any other apps for yourself? And how has your experience been? And have you had any subscription apps? If people can answer.
I think we'll just give them a couple of minutes.
Yeah, sure. I think we'll give some time.
I have a question, Dr. Palkar. Now, when we talk about Healthify Me, you said that they can also track Indian dishes, right?
Yeah.
So how do we, does the app require us to measure or weigh the food that we're eating and that enter that in? Is that how it works?
Mostly what happens is, you can click a photograph of it and share it, and you could find a catalog, keep on the basis of an average. Let's say, average kulcha weighs probably this much gram and this is the caloric value, right? Again, as I said, it's not going to be 100% reliable, but more or less you can get an accurate understanding of how much it is going to be like.
Okay. So a couple of people are saying that they haven't really used any of these apps.
Right. You could try using, I think somebody said Better Sleep, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful app, which has background music for removing distractions while working. I think it's a wonderful app, Ankur. So I think, you can start using some of these apps which are available for free to use. There are also trial versions available so that, you can first have a complete understanding of how these apps are working, and probably based on that, you could then start using them, right? If you had to start off with a mental health related app, then you could start off with, also Daily Calm and Headspace. There are some videos available on the YouTube as well. You could just search for it. You could find 10-minute or 15-minute long meditation guided sessions also available. So start using them. It will help you to overall gain your level of. An app like Karma Dost, it may not be essentially useful for people who may not be on medications, but also, let's say, for example, their parents who are on medications, right? So what that app also does is, if you have installed it in your mobile phone, your parents don't need to install it in their phone. They might just get a reminder directly by way of SMS or by way of WhatsApp, right? So people who might not be very tech savvy can also access these services, right? So these are some things that can be done, right? So what apart from the apps? So there are certain techniques called as wearable technologies that are available. A whole host of electronic devices that can be worn as accessories, embedded in clothing, implanted in the user's body, or even tattooed on the skin. So whole host of wearable technology is currently available, starting from the wristbands, which are very common, and right. So I want to know how many people are using the smart watches or smart wristbands, for example.
No, I have a smartwatch.
Right. Which one do you use, Disha?
I have the Apple.
Apple, right? It's quite reliable, right? So again, I think when it comes to smartwatches, US FDA, which is the organization which takes care of all the medications which go out in the market, they have been studying certain a certain part of this wearable technologies, and they have come up with a data which suggests that Apple and Fitbit are some of the most reliable smartwatches that are available in the market currently, right?
Yeah.
Right. So apart from the smartwatches, there are smart glasses, and also, in some countries there are smart T-shirts that are also been devised,
I had never
smart
heard of a
trousers.
smart.
Right. So there are smart T-shirts also there. It's a computer built into the threads which will supply processing power to other devices. It will also track distance covered, calories burned, intensity of the movement, and all sorts of things that can be incorporated. Even there are smart shoes that are coming up, wherein once you can feed in a destination that this is a particular place that you want to reach, it is also connected by way of GPS. And once you have to take a turn, it will vibrate and give you a signal that okay, you now have to take a turn and move in the right direction. So a whole host of wearable technologies which is now going to come up, right? It will also let you know how your feet are performing while you're running, whether there is an excessive weight bearing on any part of the foot, and whether you need to change some techniques while running. So all these things could come very handy for people, who might be suffering with, let's say, for example, arthritis or other orthopedic conditions. So this is something that is going to come up. Another photograph that I wanted to show is, this is a wearable device on head which is currently being devised by a company called as Newphony, right? And people who might be well versed with this Shark Tank, who might be seeing Shark Tank. So Newphony had come on Shark Tank also, and they also got a deal over there. So this is a wearable which tracks the activities happening at the level of our brain. So it sends us a signal that probably, at this time, your brain is experiencing stress based on the level of your EEG. So EEG is basically the electroencephalography. It measures the activities that are happening in your brain, right? And they give you specific guided meditations, guided relaxation protocols, which you can just put your headphones in, and then you use this and to determine, okay, how your brain is resting and relaxing. So this is something that you can use it while, let's say, you're working or studying, to measure how stressed you are while working on that, right? And once you realize that okay, probably you're stressed, you can use certain protocols to quickly relax and rejuvenate. This is something that is going to again revolutionize the field of mental health, the field of neurosciences in general, right? So this is about the wearable technology part. So just to end on how the future of digital solutions is going to be and how is it going to revolutionize our health. So there could be in future direct link between your apps, your wearable devices, and the electronic health records, so that early diagnosis and treatment can be done by your doctor. Let's say, for example, you have a physician, right, to whom you go to, and your app and wearable devices are connected to the doctor's electronic health records. And whenever there are fluctuations in your heart rate or in your blood sugar levels or in your blood pressure levels, it can be diagnosed early. There could be a signal sent that probably you need to visit a physician and get yourself tested. And once you do that, your testing is early, the chances of you developing a dangerous chronic illness remains very, very less. So early diagnosis, early screening is something that again, is a boon of our present era, and we have to start using it so that we start to realize. Because a lot of people I know, once they started to use smartwatches, some people discovered okay, their baseline level of heart activity was remaining very high. After starting some meditation, after starting some exercises, they were able to bring it back to normal. Now, if they had not got it diagnosed early, probably this would have continued, and till the signs and symptoms of disease started to show, which would have taken a couple of years, a lot of changes would have happened in the bodily level, right? Which could have been detrimental to that person. So early diagnosis is now possible thanks to these apps and wearable devices. Early screening of diseases is also possible. Also, as we discussed, better compliance, better adherence to the medication can be kept in. Also, digital solutions have revolutionized in a way that now the patient or now the client or now the person using these apps or wearable devices, they are not passive. They are actively participating in their well-being. They're actively participating in their health. Right? You're not just relying on the medications or the prescription that the doctor has given to you. You're also doing things on your own between your visits to your therapist, between the visits to your doctor. And this is something that is wonderful because now we each can take responsibility of our health and well-being. Right? There can be active suggestions for specific exercises, meditation, as we discussed, based on your stress levels, based on your activity level. And this is something that is going to be the future of our digital solutions to go forward, right? So I think that is where I would like to end my presentation. And if there are any questions people want to ask, I'm going to take them.
Yeah, any questions, any apps or devices that you've used and you found it to be helpful, please do share with the rest of
Right.
it.
Because this is something we are very new to. So some apps you might have used people might not have any idea about, and you might have found beneficial effects of it. So please share it with people around also, right?
Yeah, and if you have any questions for Dr. Palkar, we can address that as well. Any specific app for irregular or disturbed sleep?
Right. So sleep-related apps that are available if you're facing a disturbance in your sleep, then an Indian app is available currently by the name of Neem. It's called as NEEND. Also, Better Sleep. Somebody has already mentioned. These are certain applications that you could try out, and there are certain relaxing musics. There are certain guided relaxations also available, which might help you to sleep better. You can try it out for a couple of days or let's say a week, and still if you're facing some difficulties, probably then it's best to go to a doctor in person and get yourself assessed first before using any of these apps, right?
Doctor, did you say NEELD?
NEEND, neem. I'll just type it here.
Okay, okay. I would ask if so we've got a question from Ishanvi. I would ask if we can have some medical help in emergency conditions or at night. Is there any app for that if there's a medical emergency?
A medical emergency, I would say, it's best that you go and meet a doctor in person. But also, a app like Practo, you could find out doctors based on the availability of their slots. So there are certain doctors who have their work timings and slots kept for the night. If they are available, then probably they could give you the correct advice. Otherwise, to rely on an artificial intelligence for the time being for your medical emergency is something that is not advisable. Obviously, you can use your devices that are available to you to track your parameters. Let's say, for example, if you are caught in a place where you don't have any access to a doctor, right? At least you could measure your blood pressure, your heart rate, your saturation of oxygen, all these parameters which could be vital to your doctor, right? So these are something that you can try it out, especially in cases of emergency. But otherwise, I think it's best to visit a doctor in person, right?
And I think, Dr. Parker, here's where teleconsultation sort of helps, right?
Exactly,
Because if
exactly.
you're in the middle of the night, you may not have easy access to a doctor.
Very true.
And I think that is something that our app is also solving. So now, even if there's a medical emergency in the middle of the night, at least members who are part of the Onsurity family or who are Onsurity members have access to teleconsultation.
That's wonderful.
Any other questions, guys? Doctor, is there any app for stress management?
Okay, so the ones that I mentioned about, daily calm or better sleep, and also a whole host of apps which are based on, let's say, guided meditation, guided relaxation. There is also the app that I mentioned, Level. So these are apps that can be helpful for your stress management, right? Yeah, Priyanka, I think for anxiety also you could use those apps. These apps will have certain protocols that are already there, right? But if those protocols you started to use and you're not getting any clarity about it, or it's not helping you out, then Priyanka, it's best that you have a teleconsultation with a therapist or a psychiatrist, and then they would be able to tell you, okay, specifically for this related anxiety or for this symptoms of anxiety, you can practice this breathing technique or this relaxation technique, right? So that could be the way going forward, right? Rather than trying to use it for your own with not having appropriate awareness and knowledge about it, I think it's best that you approach a therapist. And once you have been diagnosed, once you know what are the symptoms that you're suffering from, they will be best able to tell you, okay, for your condition, which is that particular music that you can listen to, which is that particular guided relaxation, guided meditation that you can listen to. So something like that, will be beneficial for you.
Anything else? Any other question? Ishanvi says calm music and vibrations have helped her.
That's wonderful.
We'll give it another 2 minutes, doctor.
Sure, sure,
Please
sure.
share. Okay, they're asking for your contact number.
All right, all right. I'll just share my email ID if that's possible. You can reach out to me on my email. I just type in the chat boxes.
Prashant is asking, he wants to know more about what is internet addiction.
Okay. So Prashant, as of now, the term internet addiction is not classified as a specific disorder, but we have been seeing a lot of cases wherein people have been using internet so excessively that it starts to then damage not just their physical health, also their mental health, also their social well-being, and all other things are given up for the sake of one specific internet related activity. It could be either gaming, it could be either watching pornography, it could be gambling, anything that in particular could be related to it, or it could be just excessive use of mobile phones, right? So this is something that has been coming up, and we treat this kind of disorders also in the of addiction, say for example, or the behavioral addictions, right? So yes, internet addiction is something that is coming up, and the best way to solve it is keep a track of your usage of internet every day, and have certain specific hours of the day wherein you are not using any of the digital tools. It's also important, right, to detox yourself from the internet time and again, right? So probably once in a week, or let's say once in a fortnight at least, you are remaining away from your mobile phones, away from your television, or away from your screen related devices, so that at least you are allowing your body to adjust to the natural surrounding as well, right? And at least have some time for yourself in the day also where you're not using these devices actively.
And doctor, if I may add, I believe there are most phones these days have help you limit your usage of apps.
Exactly,
So you can
exactly.
see how much of Instagram or LinkedIn you want
Very
to
true,
use.
very true, right? You could track the number of hours of particular app that you have used and keep a check on it, limit on it, as you rightly said, Disha.
So we have 2 more minutes, guys. If you have any questions, anything you want to know from Dr. Palkar, please do let us know. Okay, I think that, okay. Could online interaction, there's a question. Could online interaction with peers be considered a substitute for human interaction?
In a way, if you try and make it as realistic as possible, the closest thing that comes to human interaction would be having a consultation or conversation online in the form of video chatting, right? So currently, as we are talking with each other, I think that is the closest that come to it. But yeah, obviously, completely replacing that, that would not be ideal. But at least if you're having a conversation with a friend of yours or with a family members of yours who is living far away, then try and have a video consultation, video conversation with that person. That would be most important, right? Especially in times of pandemic also, wherein social distancing was practiced. We would encourage our patients, to have at least once or twice a day to have a video call with their loved ones, because that's very important. You see people's faces, you look at them in the eye, you interact with them. That is important for us, right? Because we are all social animals. We need that social interaction to keep on happening. So just don't keep on communicating with your family members or friends through just chatting, because by that way you'll not be able to understand what the person is actually feeling, what the person's emotions are. So better to have a face-to-face interaction, right?
Doctor, we have one, and I think this is the last question from Manish, where they want to know if there is any app for anger management.
Yes, Manish, there are a lot of apps, as I said, specifically apps that target your relaxation. See, when we talk about anger or sadness or anxiety or any other emotions on the negative spectrum, all these emotions happen because there is some disturbances that are happening at the level of your neurobiology, right? And when I talk about neurobiology, there are certain elements in the brain which are working over time, which are working excessively, which are making you anxious, which are making you feel angry. So once you allow yourself to relax, once specific regions of your brain, specific areas of your body are relaxing, all these negative emotions do come down. So over a period of time, if you practice relaxation, guided meditation, or specific breathing techniques that are available, you can, definitely learn to maintain your emotional tranquility, your emotional balance, and that anger also will come down. Okay. So as I said, you can start off with calm or headspace or neem for sleep related issues. You can, definitely go ahead and try one of them. Okay.
Okay, great. I think with that, we've come to the end of the session.
Right,
Thank you
right.
so much, Dr. Palkar. I think you've shared some really impactful and insightful tips and,
Thank you.
given us a list of apps that we should definitely try and at least use to see whether or not they really create an impact in enhancing our wellness. So thank you so much. And thank you all the attendees for joining in. At Onsurity, we do these Wellness Wednesday sessions once every fortnight. We've done over 25 sessions already. You can check out our playlist on YouTube, and we will continue to sort of come up with more interesting and exciting sessions around wellness. So please stay tuned. Would love to see some of you in the next session as well. Thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you, Dishan.
Thank you. Bye-bye.